Hello, it's Rachel Haskins with Ideally Crazy, and today I have my special guest.
Montez Cox.
And you guys know that I always tell you that if I know the guest personally, that I will refer to them as I know them. And so I call him Big Tez. He's also known as Pastor Tez and probably a whole slew of other names. But he is my son's father. We have a son that will be 21 years old, Lord willing, in January. But Big Tez or Tez and I met in high school. My son's name is Lil Tez, so that's why I refer to him as Big Tez, but sometimes I just call him Tez. But Tez and I met at Western Kentucky University, which is the college that we attended. And so from that relationship, formed a son. The relationship didn't work out, but we were still able to work together as a family. And I thank God for that every day because this has been a very peaceful, and I'm not saying everything was always perfect, but as far as it ain't never been no bunch of crazy stuff. So I thank God for that. And I contributed to both of us. Both of us, our parents are both still married. And then both of our parents are peaceful people. So we wanted peace. And we both are servants of Christ. So there's nothing that God's gonna be in that it doesn't get better. So I wanted to say that just to give you guys hope. If just in case you're in a situation where it may not have worked out with your child's parent or the other parent of your child, but you still can be a family. And that's one reason why I wanted him to come on here and talk about all the things that he has done and all the blessings God had bestowed upon him. Like his story, in my opinion, is just an example of God's promises over your life. I met Tez at Western Kentucky, and when I met him, he was always a good person. So I always can see, like I always say that I can see stuff in people. So I knew he was good hearted. I knew he was very protective, and that's pretty much why I chose him. Is because, and he's always been those things. I've been very protective, even down to where my daughter is. Like, I tell you guys that I have another child. My daughter, her father is incarcerated, and so my son has only been around her dad, and she's only been around his dad, which is him. And so one thing that I almost get emotional about stuff like that because I'm a daddy's girl. But I remember even just last week, he had dropped them off at a little party they were going to, and what he called me to tell me they had checked it out. He was like, I let him know that my daughter's in there. And so he considers even her as his daughter. And my son's father did this. My daughter's father was the same way. And so I thank God for the family unit that we have. I thank God for his wife, Miss Christy Elliott Cox. She's been in Tez's life from the beginning. So since he was maybe about 1 year old, maybe a few months before that. And she's always been loving, protective. Like that's all he knows. That's literally his bonus mom. And so I wanted to let you guys know that it is possible. Through Christ, anything is possible. I watched Big Tez turn his life around, completely turn around from being a man in the streets. But he always loved and worshiped God to now being, a successful husband, pastor, author, and entrepreneur, and a lot of other things that he's invested in. And that's really important to me because it's a really good example for my son. I always say that people watch what you do more than what you say. And he's literally walked in his promises, and God has given him a lot of promises over his life and a lot of blessings in his life. And I wanted my son to be able to see that, even being a college graduate. Yeah. And so even scientific studies show that if the parent graduated from college, it's a high likelihood, like a high percentage. I ain't gonna get on her and make up things like I did yesterday. I didn't make it up that 7,000 men. I told you I was 10,000 men yesterday with Elijah. It was actually 7,000. I went home and looked it up. I'm sorry, guys. I was close though. But there's a very high percentage that the child will graduate. And that's so important to me because, like I said, I have a son with Tez. And so I always say it's like the devil is on black males' heels. And that the reason for that is they are so powerful. They are so great. The command that they have over, like one black man has over a bunch of black boys, is tremendous. And so I think a lot of times the world doesn't want them to know how great they are. But as I always say, we are the head and not the tail. And I definitely believe that as far as black men and black women are concerned. But I'll let him get a little bit, I'll stop right there and let him tell you a little bit more about himself.
Again, my name is Montez Cox. I am the pastor of True Worshipers. I am an entrepreneur. My clothing company is Regalis Generation Clothing Company. I am the author of Silent Cries, Become Loud Victories, which is one of my most uh, greatest accomplishments. I am a community leader, a man of God. I am a true man of God. I'm excited about where I am in life today.
Absolutely. So you guys know I don't waste a lot of time. I'm gonna go ahead and get right into the questions. What was the hardest part of co-parenting when our son was younger, and how did we keep respect at the center?
Uh, I think the hardest part was just we were young,
We were young.
and so we were making, I think, young people mistakes.
Mhm.
I think the hardest part was emotions, feelings, things that we couldn't learning how to agree, even in
Uh-huh.
our or learning how to disagree. I
Absolutely.
think that was
Uh-huh.
that was the biggest thing, just learning how to disagree and learning how to do it with a certain level of respect.
Mm-hmm.
But again, because we were young, I'm not sure that it always I'm not sure that it always went that way.
And it did. And it didn't. One thing I would say about Big Tez is when I met him at WKU, I chose him because I could see that he had a good heart, opposed to his harder exterior. And he was always kind and gentle with me, and he was also very protective. Like it was, even to this day, it's never been a time that I've called on him and he hasn't showed up, especially for his son, for whatever reason. Um, Communication, definitely what he's saying. When we was young, it was, sometimes things and you don't really learn how to like what I love about this new generation is they learn about their emotions and they know how to process their emotions. You know what I'm saying? Are they're learning. We didn't even think about that. We weren't taught about feelings, and even so we didn't get to the we it took us a little bit longer to learn how to process them, work through them, and what it would look like when we did. And so, like he said, sometimes when the disagreements happen, I got a little mouth on me. You know what I'm saying? And so, just learning how to, I would say, communicate appropriately. And I want to send a shout out to both our parents. What I love about both our parents, no matter what happened or what was going on between us, they always treated the other part the same way. They were always nice, loving, and kind, and still welcoming. And they just prayed for. I know that Miss Lisa prayed that because you got to raise the child, and I know that my family prayed, and we were praying people. We were already believers. So I always say this, like, the honest to God truth, I'm like a real transparent person. The honest God truth is, ladies, I would like to say this. When you are choosing just even somebody today, choose somebody that has some similarities close to yours. Because even if it doesn't work out, y'all not going to be doing stuff and pushing people under the bus. You know what I'm saying? I always like to people that have a bottom line, people have morals and standards. So even when you don't get along, it's only so far that that's going to go. Like words exchange. We don't do all that crazy. Like he's never put his hands on me. None of that. Like we don't do none of that. And nor has he ever allowed anybody else to disrespect me. And I mean nobody. So, and same thing here. So I'm very protective over him and his family. I don't like, you can't come to me about them. I mean, you can't come to me. You hear me? I'm not hearing it. And the same thing with him and with them. You can't come to them about me. And so just learning that. And I think God kind of taught me that because I remember one thing he had put on my heart is that you don't let nobody come between. If this is your family, everybody else is outsiders. And so you don't let somebody come in and break up the inside. And how you do that is through love and with God. Um, the next thing I will say is that just learning how to one thing I will say is he became a little bit calmer about things than I did, faster. He's a little bit older than me, but I remember when we get in disagreements, and he'd be like, Rachel, I'm not about to argue with you. And I was like, oh, okay. And so that helped a little bit because that helped me to calm down sometimes.
He was not like, oh, okay.
Okay. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. But eventually I was.
Eventually.
Eventually I was. And so that happened. But I thank God, sometimes what my son asks me, he'll be like, "Well, I don't understand how you." I said, "You love your child more, So keep that. If that's the center, you have to raise that child. That child did not ask to be brought into this world, and you want to give your child a place of peace. And so that means that you have to learn how to get along with somebody. Period. It ain't no ands, if, buts, or maybes. And you ask God to help you figure out how that happens, because every dynamic is different. I can't tell you how to do that. But I can tell you where your thought process has to be. I love my child more than I dislike, or because I've never hated him. I dislike anything that he did, dislike anything he said. I love my child more. And love, as I always say, love is always more powerful than anything else, because love will force you to do right. Love will force you to get it together. Love will force you to work together. And that's what happened with us. We both love our son. And so that's how we were able to form our family unit and bond as close as we have. So the next question is, how do you feel now seeing our son grown, independent, and stepping into adulthood?
Uh, a few different things. For one, I'm excited. I am excited that he is growing into a young man. He's a great young man, as a matter of fact. He has overcome a lot of situations and circumstances, even in his life, that has
Absolutely.
made me a proud father. But at the same time, I am a little reserved
Yeah.
because I know his generation. All right, and so I know that he's a black boy that's becoming a black man, and
Absolutely.
this is a big world, and sometimes this world can be cruel. All right,
Absolutely.
so really, I'm excited but still reserved. But most of all, I trust God. I
Absolutely.
trust God. I pray for the protection of our kids. So I may not just my kid, not just our kid or her daughter, my daughter, but for all kids, I pray for their protection. And so I gotta trust and believe that God hears that He hears our prayers. So again, I am excited. He's growing into a wonderful young man.
Absolutely. Y'all know I'm crazy about my baby. Lil Tez he's very intelligent. He's very charismatic. I know how he is, and I still be falling for it. You know what I'm saying? um, he's um, he's a leader. He's a leader. I mean, I have ran into so many people, and I mean men. I mean, from men in the streets to men who are in, I don't know, corporate positions, and they tell me Tez is a leader. He has great influence. I mean, from his preschool teachers on, that's what he is. And I feel the same way as his father. I'm so proud of the black man or that he is becoming. But I cannot lie and say that I don't get a little worried, because like I said, it's like with black men that the devil is on their coattails. And so I'm constantly warning him. I'm constantly praying. But like he said, I trust God. And so I had to, especially when Tez was a teenager, I had to give it over to God a lot, because, and that doesn't mean that I wasn't present, because I was still very present. I'm fasting, I'm praying. I remember at one point in time, God was waking me up in the middle of the night, and I was literally getting on my, I could, I don't know. God puts these things in mothers, and we can feel when we don't know what we're looking at. We don't know what we see. But I could feel that someone right. You know what I'm saying? And I'm a very loving person. I love children, and my son is a leader. So as you can imagine, I didn't like to have my kids over a lot of people's houses. So as you can imagine, there was always boys over my house. So I mean, when I tell you, it will be, I don't know how many boys over my house. There would be boys over my house. I just made sure the refrigerator was full and that they didn't eat nothing. And when I tell you they my boys, those are my boys. And so some of them was from different areas, and was a little bit rough, and there had been times where Tess had maybe got mixed up in a little things that he should not have. But I remember God was waking me up in one season every morning, like 3 o'clock in the morning. And when I tell you, I didn't even know, I just would roll on the floor and get on my knees. But it was literally happening consistently, praying, praying, praying. And then I remember when it broke, because I didn't know when it was going to stop. I just knew what I was supposed to do. And I don't even, God, that's why I said what I love about, because this was during the period that I met Christ. Remember I told you I had always been in the church, but I didn't have a relationship with Christ until COVID. So I just knew what to do. It's like the Holy Spirit on the inside. You just know what to do. You're like, well, how did you know what to do? I don't know. Nobody told me. I just knew to get on my knees and pray. And so I remember when it broke, and I was like, well, God, is this it? And whatever it was, I had fought through it. And but he said, now you have to give it to me. You have to trust. I remember me and my son had a little argument on a cruise, and I had called his dad. I'm like, I ruined him. Like, he's so spoiled. I've ruined him. And I was crying. And that's my baby. So I don't be sensitive about men, but I mean some of them. But I be real sensitive about my baby. Yeah, so you know what I'm saying? Like, any little thing, I love my babies. And your son and you have a different type of relationship. And I remember after that, God was like, if you got to give him to me. And so once I decided in my heart to, then my mind was able to, see what that looked like a little bit. And what I can say is Tez's relationship with his dad is a little bit different than it is with me. What I do love about it is some things he won't come and tell me, but he'll go tell his dad. And if it's something that I need to know, he'll be like, all right, I'm going to give you to this point to tell your mama. If you don't tell her, I'm going to tell her. And so that's what I appreciate. I appreciate there's no secrets between us. And even if there is something that I don't know about, I know that it's safe with him, and there's a reason why I don't know. And I'm okay with that. But anything that is my part or my role to play, and it's something that I can do something about, he's gonna give Tez, he respects Tez, and he gives Tez a certain amount of time to tell me. And if he doesn't tell me, then he comes to me and tells me. And just like every other time, I handle it quickly because that's what my job is to do. So those are the things that I would say about watching our son grow up.
Let me say this real quick.
Absolutely.
Fathers, it is extremely important for fathers to be in their child lives. Absolutely. All right. And I know that society paints a picture, mm-hmm. all right, especially for Black fathers, mm-hmm. okay? And then I know the turmoil that it takes to co-parent, mm-hmm. all right? But we are necessary. Absolutely. All right? Fathers provide structure for the kids' lives, okay? Me and Montez, we went, his teenage years,
they was rough.
His teenage years, it was rough, all right? It was extremely rough, but I needed him to know that you have a father. I needed him to know that you have a dad, and some things it's not even going to be an option. Absolutely. All right, some paths it's not even going to be an option, especially knowing where I come from. Mm-hmm. So it is extremely important for fathers to be in their children's lives because we add structure. We add structure to not only the boys but even to the girls. All right. Absolutely. I need my daughter to see how a woman is supposed to be treated so she knows what to accept. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we can't let the enemy, we can't let society, we can't let these false narratives mm-hmm. control our activity that we have in the lives of our children. And we have to fight through it. All right. Rachel said earlier, we both love our child, so we had to fight through stuff. The Bible says love covers a multitude of sin. All right. Mm-hmm. So even if I got to deal with this to be in the life of my child, to make sure that they get the foundation that they need, then I would rather have to deal with certain levels of, disagreements, with certain levels of hell, with certain levels of, with certain levels of certain things to make sure that my children are good. All right. So we can never downplay or allow somebody else to dictate the role that a father has in the life of their children.
Absolutely. And as a girl who grew up with a dad, I'm a daddy's girl. I absolutely feel like fathers are needed. Like you said, for not just boys, but also girls too. And one thing I will also say, and I'm glad he jumped back in there because this is very important, especially because this is about family. You know what I'm saying? And family is the foundation of everything. It, like, even from your businesses, that's who supports you first. So, but with Tez, like, one thing I appreciated, he didn't let, we listened to our son's concerns about maybe the other parent, but he never allowed Tez to talk bad about me or put me down. And even Christy, she'd be like, you got a good mom. I've heard her say that. And I never allowed that with him. And so, and because kids, when the other parent ain't giving them what they want or whatever reason, and I love my son, but he's very intelligent and he's very manipulative, charismatic, but very manipulative. I don't know how he does it, but he has a way to get you on his side. And I promise you that I say that as his mother. But some things I always say that even going back to God, understanding your relationship with God. And so how I taught him to respect his father was one, how I understand my relationship with God. And like I said, that has always been, thank God I've always had a father, because no matter what we were going through, that's your dad. God is not always going to do what you want, how you want to do it. And you might not understand, it might be crazy, but you still have to honor him. That is your father. And the thing is, he's good to you. So then I can't say that about somebody who has an abusive father. I'm putting this, keep it in context. Tez has always been a good father. He's always been a protective father. He's always been a father that showed up. Like even like my son, even when I would travel nurse, my son would stay with them or he would go back and forth. And even to the point where there was a point in time that I kind of feel like he said Ted's younger year, like his teenage years got a little rough. I can laugh about it now. I laughed about it a little bit then because I felt so bad for him. But I remember when Big Ted was going up there picking little Ted's up from school every day at like 3 p.m. for tutoring. And come to find out a month later that he hadn't been into Big Ted's talked to the teacher and found out he hadn't been tutoring for a month. So imagine getting off work every single day, having all the responsibilities that he has. And at that time, I was, I wasn't able to do it because I was travel nursing, going back and forth. And so he's doing that, and the child is not even where they're supposed to be. So like he said, it's a lot of little intricate parts that work with it. And like even with his wife, like his wife has showed up with me and my mother to parent teacher meetings because he might have had another responsibility that he had to go to. So that family unit, but the man being the head. And so what I will say about that is, like I'll go back to before, because there was a certain level of respect for me, because like I said, he never allowed anybody else to disrespect me. Like if it was ever going to be a problem, it's going to be a problem. So he was able to respect me, because anything you don't allow anybody else, you'll start holding yourself on that too. And he hasn't disrespected me. You know what I'm saying? He's always been, like I said, he's protected my feelings and everything else. So I appreciate that. But with him being the head, he wanted us all to get along. So he decided that we were going to get along, and that's how by respecting each, like even between me and Christy, respecting me and respecting her, and just letting that be cohesive. And because he's the head, and then we're here we are, we're the family unit, and so all of that start working together. And it does take time sometimes, just like anything else. Like anything else that's new, it takes time. Give yourself time, give yourself grace, pray, and go on. But like he said, do what. Especially men, and not just especially men, but men, do whatever you have to do to try to make it work as far as being a father in your child's life. Because even the ones that are too proud to say it, they want you there. It's never a point in time where they don't want you there. I can say little Ted's is crazy about his daddy. Like he speaks highly of his father. He'd be like, my father's a good man. You know what I'm saying? He'd be like, that's, he'd be like, that's my nigga. You know what I'm saying? Like they are that where it's his father, but they also have a friendship. There's been things that I didn't quite understand and I was against, but Tez will come and talk to me. He'd be like, so and so and so and so. I'd be like, okay, cool. That's how we gonna do it. And so we would go we would go by there. And so being able to trust that he had a different understanding because he is his father. And there are some things that he understands that I didn't understand because we haven't lived the exact same life. And so a lot of that, and I never go against his father. So I remember one year there was a Halloween and like they wanted to go trick or treating, but Tez got in trouble and his daddy was like, he's not going nowhere. And so my mom was like, well, call your daddy and see if you can go. Because, if his daddy say he can go, he can't go. And so she was like, well, call your daddy and see if you can go. And so he called him. He was like, no. She's like, well, sometimes that's how men end. Once they've made up their mind about something. But I learned that from my mother. So I will say that my mother, if my daddy said it was a no, it was a no. And it wasn't nothing to it. So I got that from her. So it might be things that I didn't always agree with. But I had to respect him in his position as his father and as the head of that, of our unit as far as that's concerned. So I'll go on to the next question. What was the turning point that made you leave the streets behind, and how did that shape who you are today?
Okay, the turning point. The turning point was I had I caught a case. All right, it was a trafficking it was a trafficking case. I think all of this was ordained by God for one, but because if I had got caught alone, then I don't think that I would have changed.
Okay.
But it was the fact that, first of all, it's two parts. My son was about 8 months old, 6 months old, I would say, about 6 months old.
Okay.
So I had a newborn son. And then also, when I caught the case, 5 of us got locked up. So it was some of those people, Christy, who is my wife now, my best friend Christina, who were actually innocent, but had to go to they had to go through the same consequence. All right. So I think that's what kind of got my attention, that there were innocent people around me that also got in trouble because of my actions. All right. So at that point, uh, I was already fighting with change because I had a couple of friends that had already gotten shot up. I had a couple of friends that had already went to prison, and so I was already fighting change because I didn't want to have to see my son from being on the inside of a jail cell.
Absolutely.
So getting caught up and these innocent people going through the same thing is kind of what pushed me to a point to where, all right, enough is enough. Enough is enough. And so I didn't know how to change. I just knew, because I come from a God-fearing family.
Yeah.
So what I done was I just went to church. Now I didn't go to church to be a pastor. I didn't go to church to do nothing. I just knew that I would not be able to change if it was just left up to me. I knew I needed God if I was going to make this transition. All right.
Absolutely.
And so I went to church, and I didn't just go to church. When I went to church with the same type of intensity that I did when I was in the streets.
Absolutely.
I went to prayer service Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I went to Bible study. I went to Sunday school. I dove all the way in. I didn't know what I was looking for. I didn't know what I was going to get out of this. I just knew I needed my life to change, and in order for my life to change, the only one that was going to be able to do it was God.
Absolutely. I would say that I was a lot naive. I knew that Tez was in the streets a little bit, but I don't think, I didn't really know what that really entailed and what that really meant. And I probably still don't know what it really entailed and what it really meant. And like I will say is that when I say that he's been protective, even where he had me, you know what I'm saying? Like, I would never be able to sit over his head, like, especially with the baby. I would never be able to sit at his house like all day while he was, around all of that. So I would be like somewhere else with the baby. And I remember I seen one of his partners the other day, Deshaun, and hey Deshaun, and he would literally send Deshaun sometimes over there to keep me company, you know what I'm saying? And I would be crying and cutting up because I went through a lot of postpartum and all of that. But thank you to Shine. He was always a listener. He was the sweet. I mean, when I tell you I love it, my son has some very good uncles. Like you said, Deshaun is one of Lil Ted's favorite people. He said, he talks about his character, like just how well, and Deshaun is really like it. Like he was always calm with me and everything else. He'd be like, Rachel, get out of there, Grace. I was like, because I'm very, like I keep telling you, I'm very dramatic. But just with him being in the streets, and it's one thing when y'all just dating or whatever else, but when you bring a child into the picture, it's a whole bunch. It's different. And as a person who grew up with their father, I absolutely wanted my son to have his father, no matter what. And that didn't change because we wasn't together. So when I tell you, I thank God from the bottom of my soul that he was able to come out from the streets and live a nice and prosperous life. And when I look at his life, like, a lot of Tez's friends that have had hard beginning, and I'm talking about, they done been in some stuff. And, probably still in some stuff. Some of them, like I got one, my little baby, he's locked up, but he's going to come home pretty soon. And who I think about, he's my little heart because I don't know what it is about him. Sometimes I don't know what it is, what God draws me into. But I always want him to I think of Big Tez and I'm like, this is what God can give to you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like God, and when I see Tez traveling and with his wife and his family and even just all the function with his kids, I'm so happy because had he stayed in the streets, that was not gonna be his life. And I say that knowing that for sure because I have my daughter's father who is now incarcerated. And, I pray about that. I know God's going to work. I know that he's not going to be in that as long as they gave him. For those of you who, I never say how long it is, but they gave him 32 years. So, and only reason I'm saying that here, a lot of times I don't say it because I don't like to put it out there and claim it. But it ain't going to be 32 years. God has already put that on my heart, and I'm never wrong about that when God puts on my heart. But I say that because, like Ted is saying, we're talking about being in the streets. That's what the streets can cost you out of your child's life. That's why I told you the time today. And imagine telling a 12-year-old baby girl something like that. We didn't even tell her for a while. But just that with my son, I never wanted that for him. When he changed and he started going to church, I was so happy. Like I guess I kind of knew in a way that was always a possibility, but I was new in my faith. And so if you don't see something, you don't always believe God can do it. But when he does it, you like, thank God. And so I thank God for all the things that he's done in Ted's life and all the people that Ted. And so I love that he goes out and tells his story because experience is a better teacher than anything. And I always say that on Ideally Crazy, you can reach somebody. Every person reaches a different person. And so he absolutely can reach people. And I think he knows how big his story is and how big his blessing is. But sometimes I wonder, like, if he knows that, like, how God just delivered, and he's still gonna keep blessing him and delivering more and more promises to him. But just even in his right now today, that how God showed him that he'll do everything that he said he could do if you trust him. And his wishes are to prosper you and for you to do well. And so I love that he tells his story because, the people that I'm around, when I say around, like my boys that have a little bit rough of a background, he's a prime example of, and so Ted can always refer back to his dad about somebody who's been in the streets now and how God, they living well. Because a lot of men and boys that stay in the street because they believe if they don't do it that way, that there's no other way, but that's a trick of the enemy.
Yes, it is.
He always shows you the easiest way. I always say that God always tells you what it's going to cost you. So even in business and any type of relationship, the people that are open and upfront and tell you what it's going to cost you in the beginning, I appreciate that. The people that hide stuff from you, that's devilish. The devil will tell you what he's going to give you. He don't tell you what it's going to cost you. And what I can always promise you is that it's always going to cost you more than you want to pay with him.
Absolutely.
And so what the war and just how society, when they could no longer enslave our bodies, they wanted to enslave our minds. And so they use all type of interventions and tricks to do that, from drugs to gangs to all of this, to taking black men out the homes, to even where they wouldn't making laws where black women couldn't stay at home with their children, all kind of things, because they knew that if they could separate the family, that they could, start to break it down and still enslave us. And so we, a lot of times the guy, and there's not, I love a rapper because if you use your art to make some money and get out the streets, guess what? That's still a blessing. You ain't killing nobody. You ain't hurting nobody. I'll take it. But how they'll put up like drug dealers and stuff like that and act like that's the only way to have some money. And I say that's not true. And if you notice the media, even how the media show up, we have to keep showing up in spaces. That's another reason on this platform why I want more of my black men to come, because they like to act like we don't have nothing, like black men can't have anything unless it's in the streets. And that's not true. There's much more successful black men that are in corporate and entrepreneur positions than there are in the streets, are in jails. But they want you to believe that. They want you to believe that is the standard, and it absolutely is not. And so that's how it's just a trick of the enemy. And so I always say, don't fall for that trick. And even women, there'll be certain things. One thing I always will say is that I have been able to hold my head up high as a woman because anything that I've obtained, I didn't obtain on my back. You know what I'm saying? I went out and walked and earned it. I earned my degrees. Even with my house, no matter what my daughter's father did, I completely did everything with my house by myself. One thing is because we weren't married. So I'm not one of those people that believe in buying homes with people that you're not married to. And so I wanted everything. I mean, from every dime, to be out of my pocket. And so what God gave me, I could keep. And so you don't have to sell yourself short. You don't have to, and even just wanting to be, and where did that come from? I didn't want my son seeing me with a whole bunch of different men. You know what I'm saying? I always tell you, I don't care what other people think about me, but I care what they think about me. My kids think about me. I didn't want my children seeing men all in the house and doing all this, and then how they were being treated was determinant on how whatever man I was dating. None of that. And so I just decided what I wanted, and God blessed that. And then he blessed me with people around me that supported what I wanted. And we were able to work together to get those things. But absolutely, you're not, one thing I love about the Saints, I remember the Saints said, for my guys that are still out there in the streets, there's still hope. If you're not ready, it don't matter. They say if you're not ready, go ahead and get ready anyway. You hear me? Leave. It's never going to be a perfect time to quit doing something that you ain't supposed to be doing no way. And what I always like to say, y'all are so smart. Like black men, black women are very intelligent, but black men are very intelligent. You guys are very wise. That's why they want to stop you. The same thing that you do in the streets, baby, that's not nothing easy. If you can do in the streets, the reason why they trying to keep you out there is because they don't want you to take over when you come into their fields. Because God has just blessed you. You have extra talent. You have extra wisdom. It's just in you. It's engraved in your cells. It's a part of who you are. It's a part of your melanin. You really are kings. And so if you know that, then and my mission with my boys is to, some of them I didn't get until they was teenagers, but I keep putting that in them. Baby, you smart, you a king, you gonna eventually you gonna start acting like it, you gonna start moving like it, because it don't matter about nothing else. What you believe is what matters. That's what you gonna step on. Okay, to our next question. What role did faith play in your transformation and the life you've built since then? Well, we kind of answered that question, don't you think? Or do you want to? Okay.
We did. Faith played that was the main component.
Absolutely.
Because I didn't know that I had other options. Mm-hmm. So I needed something to believe in. Absolutely. So faith was the main component. That's what I was holding on to. I had to trust and believe that God was going to create something that I didn't even have the mental capacity to believe or even know could exist. So, I didn't have a passport when I was hustling.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Okay. I didn't have the type of home that I have now when I was hustling. Absolutely. I could have gotten these things.
Absolutely.
But because my mindset was, stuck in a certain capacity, I didn't even know that these things was possible. Absolutely. So faith was the main component to help me become who I am now.
Absolutely. And faith, to build on what he's saying, faith is exactly what he is saying. We don't have the mental capacity to understand what God's going to do in our life. Because God is never going to even just give you what you want. He's going to always exceed your expectations. Mm-hmm. And so it's just trust. And so sometimes I notice even with me that and I don't know with you, sometimes God will break you down till you get down to the bottom and you ain't got, like he said, you ain't got nothing but faith.
That's what happened.
And so that's honestly, that's the perfect point from faith to begin. Because if you're at the bottom, what's the bottom also known as? I always say that you use always an interchange. I said, we telling stuff through God's eyes and we understand the character of God and that it is for us to prosper and do well. For everything bad thing, ask God. Even if you can't figure out what the good thing is about it, ask God, what is the positive? Let me see this through your eyes. And so at the bottom is also called what? Your foundation. So when God gives you faith, when you're at your at the bottom, which is also your foundation, guess what? He's getting ready to build you. He's just making sure that your foundation is strong, because the things that he wants to give you, you don't have the mental capacity to hold it. He's God. How would you? And it's sometimes it's hard. Even today, I was like, there was a certain situation. I was like, God, I don't see how. And I'm being honest with you. I'm like, I don't see how. But you know what I say after that? Because I always tell you guys that I talk to God real honestly and truly. I said, but I trust you. Period. At the end of the day, I don't see how, but it's not my job to see how. It's not your job to see how. It's not your job to figure out how. It's his job. We do what we supposed to do. He gives us a little bit of time, and then we just trust him to do what he's supposed to do, and that's faith. And so I definitely would say that you don't have the mental capacity to see what God can do. I know, like even like he was talking about where he lived. One thing my dad said, and even my mom said, like she said when she first started looking at houses that were kind of like the house that she lived in now, her mother said to her, she said, "Why are you looking at those expensive houses?" And here we sit today. And with my dad, he didn't even, he like my dad grew up in the projects, and then we grew up in the West End. We had a really nice house, and one thing, it always was nice, but he didn't even think about living in a house like it. And so, but my mother seen the vision. And so she bought the vision, and here he sits, and he has a whole basement to himself where he can do whatever he want to do and stuff like that. So like sometimes you're not going to have the capacity, but God was literally send people in your life. Like I do believe that everybody plays their role. Like how God sent, his wife into his wife who had a different type of drive and who wanted different things. Like one thing I said, date women that want something. That's what my daddy always said. He said, I ain't never wanted nobody that didn't want nothing. So he always made sure that, the partner, not the women he dealt with, but his relationships were with women who wanted something. I always wanted something. Everybody always knew it was a cost that came with me. And it's not so much financial. It's like, yeah, that's included, but it's loyalty, it's family, it's, talking to me well. It's different things like that. Good things. And so that'll push you in that direction, because women are multipliers. And so when we multiply, we'll take your vision and okay, well, let's do this, and this. And so I think that's also important. So let's go on to the next question. Regalis is such a powerful name. Can you share the story and inspiration behind your clothing brand and what message you hope people feel when they wear it?
Regalis. It didn't start as Regalis. I had a different name for it, but when I went through the legal ramifications, that name had already been taken.
Okay.
So I said I wanted a name that had a meaning to it, but that people would have to search for the meaning for it. Okay. All right. I wanted the name to be a message.
Absolutely.
Okay. And because I was trying to create, or not trying, because I created a Christian clothing brand, because this generation is not like, our parents' generation. They wore suits, they wore dresses and covered themselves and so on and so forth from the head to the toe. And this generation doesn't, they might not wear suits, but they may come in jeans, but they may wear, a nice shirt, and some of their clothes has messages. And so I wanted the message that I presented to be something that represented the kingdom of God.
Absolutely.
And so Regalis means royalty.
Absolutely.
All right. And so the name of my clothing line is Regalis Generation. Absolutely. Which is royal generation. All right. That's Bible. That's in scripture.
Absolutely.
And so everybody that has worn my clothes, everybody that has put on these clothes, I would like to confess or declare that they are a part of God's royal generation.
Absolutely.
All right. So that's where it came from. And I know in the beginning it was kind of, rocky, because people didn't know what Regalis means. So then I had to start out and saying stuff, start putting the meaning on clothing. Regalis is royalty, so people could get it. So that's where it came from.
And I think it's, I love the name Regalis, and I think it is a very pertinent message, especially in a clothing brand, because like you said, we got so many other things, but you are royalty, and everything needs to remind you of that, because the more you think it, the more you're going to move like you're a child of the king. You hear me?
Absolutely.
And so, like you said, I can't. Y'all know I came from a Pentecostal church, Church of God in Christ. You know, we believe in big suits, ties, big hats. And with Tez, I love him because his daddy's a pastor, so he always went back and forth. And so it became a point where he didn't want to dress up all the time. And I always tell you guys that I'm one of those mothers that I don't do everything. Like you said, our generation doesn't do everything like our parents. Like, it wouldn't matter what I wanted to wear or what my brother wanted to wear. We was gonna have to wear it. But I'm not that type of person because I don't believe I believe you have to give children a little, like, you govern them, but you have to give them a little bit more, because how will they know what they like if you don't never give them a chance to
Right.
form what they like or where they're comfortable in? I don't believe that your style of clothes depends on your success. That's not my opinion. I believe that you need to be nice, neat, and clean. And so, because my belief is that it's not on you, it's in you. And so like you said, the comfortable wear and stuff like that to go to church and stuff like that. He enjoyed doing that. And so I don't care what he wears as long as he get there. You know what I'm saying? And with his dad's clothing brand and me always preaching, that because I've always told Ted, you a king, you're smart, you this, you that. And my son is a little bit smaller in stature, and I always had to deal with that because I'm little. His dad's like, normal height. But his granddaddy and a lot of the other Cox men are smaller, and I would tell him about those people. And of course, my favorite character, David. We talked about David yesterday. King David was a small in stature, and David killed Goliath. And so I always say that I love David just because he was so real, and not only that, I love the favor that David had with God, because God said that he was a man after his own heart. And so I tell Tez a little bit about, David and different things like that. But letting him know that, you don't have to, you might not be an athlete, but you're smarter than them. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not lying. Tez is smart. You're not going to meet nobody that tells you that Tez is not intelligent. Tez is very intellectually smart, and he's also very wise. Like, he's wise beyond his years. It's like amazing if you ever have a deep conversation with him. And so, just letting him know that, don't worry about what you're missing. They can't outthink you. One thing, you can't beat them because you can't outthink them. And then even just praying the blessings on him. And I do believe what we clothe our bodies with, like, if we're going to put a label on it that, because you're telling yourself what you are. All those little things matter where you think it's not. So there's been stuff that he's put on. I'm like, no, I don't like that message on it. Take it off. I don't like it. But like with the brand Regalis, it's reminding people that they're royalty. Sometimes just looking down, and like you said, if you know what the meaning of Regalis means and you're feeling a little insecure, look down, remember what the meaning is, and then walk in that. Mm-hmm. And so I do love that there's a clothing brand, that you built a clothing brand off that name, because people do need to be reminded, because every day you might not feel like royalty, but that doesn't change the fact that you are.
That's right.
You hear me? It doesn't change the fact that you are. So let's talk a little bit about your book, the phrase silent cries become loud cries. So the book is called Silent Cries Becomes Loud Cries.
Loud Victories.
Loud Victories, I'm sorry. Carries so much emotion and truth. What does that mean to you personally, and how does it connect to your journey and the mission behind your brand?
Silent cries become loud victories. The book entails some of the past struggles, or some of my earlier struggles that I went through when I became a pastor. All right. I did not know, and this is I love the Lord and I love the church. Mm-hmm. All right.
Absolutely.
But I wasn't accustomed to dealing with church people. I didn't know. I did not know that the church could be as shrewd
worse
as it was. All right. And so some of those early times of pastoring, dealing with certain situations and dealing with certain things, kind of brought in this, it kind of discouraged me. All right. It kind of discouraged me to the point of, and I'm not a person that gets depressed. I ain't that. I don't, life can happen. And to me, life happens, and we go through it and we keep moving.
Absolutely.
But during this stage, I had to fight against depression. During this stage, I had to fight against discouragement. I had to fight against condemnation. I had to fight against all of these things. And I think that one of the reasons why what made it so difficult was because I'm just now coming to the church. I love the Lord. I thought everybody that loved the Lord, act in a certain way. I did not know that these type of trials and these type of, this type of warfare took place from people who claim, so I didn't know that. All right.
Absolutely.
And so it took years for me to sit down, and because I had to heal from some certain things. All right. I had to learn that if I'm gonna be a good leader, I gotta heal. Me using my gift is not predicated on my condition. So I gotta heal. All right.
Absolutely.
It took a while, even though the book is not big in stature, the healing that's on those pages, when people read it. And I don't care what you've been hurt from. I don't care if it's, divorce. I don't care if it's from addiction. I don't care if it's depression, mental illness. When you read this book, you're gonna experience healing. All right. So I went through it took years, I'm talking about years after these events happened for me to sit down, start writing this book, having to relive some of these things over again, you know, to kind of confirm and validate, and validate the healing. So,
Man.
so the title itself, because I didn't have a title at first. I started writing first, and then and then I needed the title to match what was in those pages, and so the Silent Cries came from because I was a leader and I couldn't
Can act.
I didn't feel like I had nobody to speak. It was embarrassing.
I know.
So I didn't have nobody. I didn't feel like I had nobody to speak to when it came to some of the things that I was dealing with. So the Silent Cries came from me having to cry alone. All right. But the loud victory come from, because once I healed from this, now look.
You hear me?
You understand? So although the cries were silent, the victories are gonna be bold.
You hear me? Real bold, real big. It's a beautiful title. It's like just it's a deep title. Because and it's one that everybody can, they can relate to. Silent Cries and Loud Victories, because it's like it. Especially, I understand what he's saying. I think we refer to it as church hurt. And I can imagine it in the position of a leader, because I know, the greater the weight, the greater the position, the greater the weight. And so, but I grew up in a church where I had to understand that politics absolutely did exist.
Absolutely.
And I did that from a place. My dad was a state minister of music, which that meant that there was nobody above him in the music department. It meant that all the musicians were underneath him. So he had a very prestigious title, and he was good at his gift. Now, my daddy was a very kind and loving and gentle and welcoming man. But that didn't mean that the rest of them was like it. And I ain't saying that none of the rest of them was like it, because that's not like, I got a few of my uncles that I'm still crazy about. Like, like my mom's from Ellie Chambers and stuff like that. Like, some of them have always been the same. So I've always kind of adapted to people that were more like, they acted like my daddy. But just being a child, like my experience with a lot of church hurt was in my young adulthood, like from a child going up. And I'll talk about this one experience. Because God, with this book, this is one of the things I always say: God will use what you go through.
That's right.
To help other people, because it's needed. But when I was a child, I remember my dad had a state choir rehearsal, and it was in Owensboro. And what that meant was all the churches from all the cities in Kentucky came together, and their choirs. It was like a state convocation where they would have rehearsal, so all the choirs would come together. And I think my mom had like some kind of meeting or something like that. And so me and my brother were sitting in the like vestibules, like in the seats. And we had been there all day, because y'all know we Kojic, so we could stay all day in Kentucky. And he was laying on my lap, sleep, my brother was. And he wasn't bothering nobody or nothing. You know, most kind of kids are running around and everything. We was little. I couldn't have been no more than 12. And my brother's 3 years younger than me. And I remember this lady coming up, messing with my little brother. She's like, get up, set up. And sleep. Get up, set up. And I was looking at her, and I like kind of grabbed him back because I ain't never played. I didn't know. Look, I one thing about me, I'm willing to take my whooping. You know what I'm saying? If you play with something I love, I've been like that since I was a little girl. I take whatever they come with it. But she said to me, she said, why are you here? I said, well, we're waiting on my dad. And she said, well, who's your dad? And I said, he's Brother Robert Haskins. She said, Mr. Music, Robert Haskins? I said, yeah. She said, oh, well, baby, lay back down. Lay down. Start putting. It disgusted me. It disgusted me. And in that moment, y'all want to know some of the moments that created why I am the way I am? I never wanted to treat nobody like that. That's why I say I treat the janitor with the same respect and love and warmth that I treat the CEO. But that's why I was a 12-year-old girl. And it left an impression on my heart. And so I had to, I didn't even think I was nobody. You know what I'm saying? My parents never treated us like that. We was just kids that liked to play, and they would let us play with any and everybody. I would play in the streets, play wherever I could play, I would play. But to see that, and I thought to myself, what type of person do you have to be to even want to up a sleeping child? Like what kind of devil is that in you that wants to do that? So I learned very quickly that there were politics in the church, even from like, sometimes in the church, they're not as hard on men as they are on women. Their struggles are different. So how even things that I did or my brother did, instead of them blowing back on my dad, it would just blow back on my mom. So knowing that there was a certain way that I had to act, look, or behave, knowing that there was only certain people, or very few people that I could ever let in on my small little circle because it wasn't safe and it would affect my whole family. Because like you said, church people, what I can respect about the world, it is what it is, and I can respect it. They normally try not to mess with your kids because they know that if you mess with theirs, it's gonna be a problem. Sometimes church people are not like it. They will disrespect, hurt your children, and then want you to be saved. That ain't never been me. Because I know if God can forgive you, he can certainly forgive me. So I'm going to tell you right now, don't have to play with my children. None of the children that I love, I have with me. I really no children in front of me because I like kids. But I always say, now I'm growing to better, but I don't know where you're going to catch me. I always that's why I like to listen to Bishop T.D. Jakes, because it just depends on what day I'm growing in Christ, but it depends on when you catch me. Don't play with my kids. But they wanted you to be saved. I remember a lady shut my hands in the piano as a little girl because she didn't like my mother.
Yeah.
I remember a lady slapped my brother because and my mother had to have grace, and she did not. And I'm not the mother that's going to have that grace. But she had grace. She did not respond. She did not do anything to that lady. She still treated that lady. But I will tell you, years later, God dealt with that woman.
Yeah.
And you will have to deal with what you do. But church is, that was my life. And so I knew how harsh it could be. And even growing up, I always say girls always had to go through, I always knew how to present myself with men, because no matter what you did, you was going to be hot, fast, or whatever else. And I'm not, you know what I'm saying? I never was. I was more concerned with playing than I was anything else. But just because not only was I a girl, but I was an attractive girl. And so I knew that, I had to distance myself when I did handshakes. I couldn't really hug because they'll see him as fine, and he's probably the one grabbing me in, and I'm trying to push away, but who they see is me. So just have to deal with it, and not even want my daughter to go do that. So, because it wasn't just me. Every single girl had to go through, and if you didn't, it was because your family was the one doing it. Because I always like to get people on her saying, oh, well, my family didn't do it. Well, I didn't go through that. That's because, and I say it, that's because it was probably your family that was doing things like that. But every single girl had to go do stuff like that in the church. So church hurt can be a huge thing, but those victories can be loud. I remember when I got pregnant with my son, and they were kind of gloating with my mom about that because I was pregnant outside of marriage. And one of the ladies came to my mom and said, well, how does it feel that Rachel's pregnant? But one thing I will tell you is that one reason why we slick is because we're very slick at the mouth. She said it don't feel no different than when it was your daughter. And that shut that conversation right on up. But just like having people even come to me and say stuff to me about after I had my son, about them. Like I remember when Tez was coming to church, he had came to church with me a couple times, saying stuff to me about, even him. Like I might not have told him about it, but it absolutely happened. Saying stuff about him to me that I didn't appreciate. And these are not things that I've ever practiced or that my parents have ever practiced, because we were raised to mind your own business. But just a lot of church hurt. And a lot of silent cries when I was young, but my victory is loud, because look at me now.
That's right.
I look like God's favor, just like I always had. You hear me? And so does he, and so does my son. And so I thank God for those silent cries, because those silent cries really did help mold the person that I am today.
Absolutely.
So that God could use me. And so, like he said, the book is not very small, because some things, it don't take a lot of explanation.
That's right.
People been there, they know how it feels.
That's right.
But letting them know that, yeah, you might cry silent. And I talked about the scripture the other day. Thank God I have him today, because he might know the scripture a little bit better than me. I'd be putting words in there and taking words, but the scripture's in there. Y'all get the gist. That God collects all of those cries. And but every tear that you cried, that he's going to turn around and give you joy, and he's going to bless you for those. And that's where that victory comes in.
Amen.
And so I don't know what season you are in right now, but what I do know is what they say: if it ain't all good, it ain't all done. You hear me? So until God turns that, whatever it is, situation into your victory, it's not over yet. So yes, it's absolutely. And what another thing he said is being embarrassed and about the silent cries, because you don't know who to take it to. You're embarrassed about being depressed about how people are treating you, because it does weigh a lot on you. It absolutely does. I end up having to go to another church because it was always something. And I am a peaceable person. I love my peace. And so, like, not knowing how to express that really, though, not knowing that it was normal. And so those silent cries led me to seeking God and healing. Like you said, you got to, point blank period, it don't matter what they did, you got to forgive them. So let me say that once I understood that it wasn't a question of if I want to forgive, that if I was going to walk with Christ, that I had to forgive. Absolutely. Which means I was going to have to heal. Then I said, once I understand that God's not asking me, he's commanding me. I'm like, yes, sir. And so all you can do sometimes is just give it to God. And when I tell you, like he said, sometimes when he takes it, and that's another thing I said yesterday, you don't even know that it's gone until you start to talk or deal with those people that did things for you, and there's nothing there. And I can even say this, like I hate to say it, that even stuff, my church was so messy at one time that just him and his wife being connected to me led some mischief to his door. And I handled it. But not before. I had no clue what was going on, but I was like, what in the world? So church can absolutely be the messiest place that you go if that's what they want to do. And then I love my church family, and it's not like that then, because a lot of those people that were there did leave. But it can be like the background I came from, that's how messy it was. It followed me and tried to infect his life. And like I said, I don't play about my family. I remember I went to that girl because she asked me for his wife's information, and she wasn't nobody. She was just trying to start some mess and be messy. But I did. I had some very choice words with her about that, because I don't play about my family. And one thing about it, anything I do behind scenes, I don't care if you tell everybody, because I've already told people what I do not play about. And I know that God's going to forgive me. And I know that, anybody knows me knows that I'm a very peaceful person. So I don't bother nobody. Do I? I don't bother nobody. So if you've been bothered by me, it's because you started and I just had to wrap it up. Now I'm gonna wrap it up neatly because I'm a lady, but I am gonna wrap it up with the help of God. But we're gonna move on to the next thing. How do you balance being a pastor, entrepreneur, husband, and father while staying true to your purpose?
I prioritize.
Absolutely.
All right. I can't get my assignments mixed up with his assignment.
Oh, absolutely.
And so my first ministry has to be my home.
Absolutely.
My first ministry has to be my family. Mm-hmm. All right. That's going to always come first.
Absolutely.
Regardless of whatever happens, my first ministry has to be the way that I lead my household.
Absolutely.
All right. And then after that comes it comes to church.
Absolutely.
All right. Because that is also my assignment.
Absolutely.
Now, the other things is what I do. Mm-hmm. All right. But my divine assignment that comes from God, those things are always going to reign supreme. Now finding balance was difficult in the beginning because you only got a certain amount of time in a day.
Absolutely.
So trying to find balance, it is difficult. But when you prioritize what comes 1st, everything else will fall in place. All right. So it's always going to be for me. It's always going to be for me. Family,
Absolutely.
ministry, and then everything else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And like what I always say, and that's absolutely, it's biblical. Charity starts in the home. It may not stay there. It doesn't stay there, but it starts there because that's your foundation. If that's not right, your foundation is not solid, and so you're gonna have problems. Like I said, things come in, it'll be able to destroy you, and that's what the enemy wants to do, is destroy your family. But I've heard a lot of people say like prioritization. That's what nurses do. We say ABCs, and what that means is airway, breathing, circulation. So if you're wondering when you go into the emergency room, who they see first and why they see it first, why they see them first, that's how we decide who we're going to see first. ABCs, airway, which means can they breathe? If they can't breathe, that's our number one emergency, because if they can't breathe, then they're gonna die. Like, so your broke leg is not gonna come before, because nothing operates without breathing, your brain or nothing else. And so same thing like that. Your family is your breath. It is your breath. It's your foundation. One thing about your family, no matter what happens, what comes, if you was to lose it all, those people are always gonna be right there with you, loving you, holding you down. You could lose everything, but those are your people. Those are, so you don't have to wonder about who your people are as far as your family goes. Those are your people. Then we say breathing, breathing is like, okay, are they breathing okay? So the church, it restores us. It helps us support our family. It helps us be good in our communities and everything like that, and show up the way that we need to show up. And so that's next. And then circulation. Circulation is like your blood flow. And so those will be your projects. Those will be the things that you do to, your finances, your business and stuff like that, to keep everything afloat. And so all three of them are needed, but like, it's kind of like what the Bible says, seek me first. So God gives you a family first. He's our father. Think about it. I always say the Bible, I love the Bible so much because you can read it a whole bunch of different times and still get a different understanding each time. But God is our father. So he even shows us family first. You know what I'm saying? He shows us that that's the structure. He didn't say he's our pastor. He's our family. He's our father. So I absolutely agree with that. And so one thing I always say, that even being a nurse, I'm never going to put anything above my family, ever. Right. Ever. Because I'm not going to get up into heaven trying to explain why I was taking care of somebody else's family member, why I let mine go and be without when they needed me. It's one thing needed me. And even some of the wants, because some of them want, sometimes your presence is a want and it's also a need. And so I always say that. And then I give it to God, because I know that that's God's will. So I know that he's going to work it out. It ain't no question. And sometimes I get a little stressed. And then what I especially with scheduling and stuff like that. And what helped me with that is I had to relax. Like I always say, I told you guys yesterday, I relaxed. I said, here you are worried about scheduling. I said, but one thing about it, you're going to do what you want to do. And I've already decided, I already have a plan in protocol about that. My family come first. So regardless of what happens, my family will come first. I'm not worried about losing no job. I'm not worried about losing nothing, because whatever I lose is not for me, and God will replace. And and every time he replaces it, he give me something better. But he's already given me direction. I already know what to choose. And that's what they say, seek him first and all these things will be added to you. I don't have to worry about nothing else, because if I'm in his will and I'm aligned with the things he's told me to do, everything else is going to be provided. And so that doesn't mean that every little thing that I stop and do for, I have also, because my family is first, I have, my children are very independent people. You know what I'm saying? I spoil them a lot, but there are certain things they know. I always tell them, I'm not going to do it all. I always tell them how smart they are. I figure it out. Even my little girl, I start making her, she's real shy sometimes. I be like, a closed mouth don't get fed. So even at the drive-thru, when she would like, let me order, I be like, no, tell them what you want. So, I know that in times where I have to be away and I have looked at it and I'd be like, okay, well, this is something they can handle, or this is something they're going to have to learn how to handle. And I know for sure that they have the capability of doing it and the capacity of doing that. Then I can move on to something else because I've already instructed it. And after that, I know God got me. But absolutely, just balance. And then, like the other person said, I had another guest say that sometimes you have to understand that sometimes when you have all this, yes, you absolutely can have it all. But sometimes when you're doing really well in this area, you might be slacking a little bit in this area, and then that's where grace comes
That's
in.
right.
And so that's also important.
Putting my family first is not, and because I want to make sure that we understand that this is not putting them before God.
God, no.
All right. But what I've learned is when I put my family first,
Absolutely.
I'm always afforded more time that I need to do ministry.
Absolutely.
Now, when my balance was all out of whack and I was just doing ministry and my home was in an uproar, it was not peaceful.
Absolutely.
When I started putting my family first,
Absolutely.
they gave me grace to be able to do ministry. You understand? So I don't miss events. I don't miss my kids' events. I don't miss my wife's events. I'm there when my wife is, she's graduating or she's doing something. I'm there when my son has some event when he's graduating or little league games. I'm there when my daughter just got a white coat Sunday. All right. Yeah, I wasn't there to see her get the white coat on, but I was there and she saw me there.
Absolutely.
And
That's all
then
that matters.
absolutely. And then that gave me grace
That's all that
to be
matters.
able to leave and then go do ministry.
Absolutely.
All right. So that's where the peace comes in because I give my family what's needed and then everything else comes after that. So even my church, even the people that I oversee in my church, they love my family for my family, allowing them to share with to share with me as much as I do because
sharing you because they are sharing you. Yeah,
absolutely. So it's God first, and then it's my family. They are my first ministry, and then after them, everything else can fall in place.
absolutely. And I'll say this. Some of my experience, like with my dad, when you work in the church and he's a pastor and you have a high position of leadership in the church or even anywhere, if you're a leader, if you're, if you the CEO or whatever, that takes a tremendous amount of weight. And what everybody has to realize is that they're going to have to share you.
Yeah.
And so it's hard on the person, but even the family, we understand that we have to show you that there are things that you have to do. And I thank God for learning that at a young age because I watched my mother have to do that. Not only was my dad the state minister of music, but he was a deacon. So he was opening up the church. I mean, he had to be there before everybody else had to be there. He was closing the church. I mean, he had to be there after everybody had went home. My daddy used to clean the church. That means on times that there was nobody else there, he was cleaning the church. And so we always shared him. But, because my daddy always showed up, like Big Ted said, and Big Ted has always shown up, like every games. And there's then times that he had to tell me because, I always felt like there were certain things he did and certain things I did. But he's like, Rachel, come to some of these games. And so when he told me that, I was like, okay, well, I don't mind. I just thought that was something y'all did together. Like, so tell you, sometimes people don't know because I want to be there. I just thought maybe that's something y'all did by yourself, like his little league games and stuff like that. But once he told me, I was on it. But like they have so much responsibility, and as long as you are showing up for your kids, that's all they care about. That's all I cared about. My daddy has always, even for Israel, even for my son, he always shows up. The way he showed up for us, he showed up for them, showed up for my kids. But what you have to understand is the weight on them. They have to do a lot of stuff tired. They have to,
Absolutely.
If it wasn't for the grace of God, I don't know how they would do it, because if you understood, but they say, don't ask for people's anointing and blessing because you don't know what it costs them.
Absolutely.
And you may not be willing to pay the cost that they had to pay to get it. But if you are, let God know and he'll, let him work it out. But just like you said, it's not putting your family above God, because God, it's just, knowing that there has to be a very a very good balance there where everybody
Absolutely.
knows what's going on, and how you get that balance is, like you said, showing up. I never fuss about. You will never hear me talk about what my daddy wasn't at, how busy, because all I ever remember is him being there. You hear me? And so his children, his family, and even me as being his son's mother. That's when I can always say I've never called him about anything he's not showed up. I mean, not once. Um, and even if there were, like I said, if there was a conference or something and he couldn't be there, he always sent representation, which was his wife, which was always there. And so they just always be by him taking care of his family, were peaceful. You know what I'm saying? So you want to know, just keep doing the right thing. It'll work out.
That's right.
So when you think about legacy, what do you hope your children and community remember?
Uh, I lived the life poured out. That's what I want them to remember. That my life, I didn't hold nothing back
Absolutely.
when it came to service, when it comes to loving on people, when it comes to teaching, when it comes to contributing. I live the life poured out.
Absolutely.
And I want my kids, and I think that they are already picking it up. I want to be the example for them. All right.
Absolutely.
We live, and while we got breath in our bodies, we serve
Absolutely.
in any capacity that we can. All right. Because I heard somebody say the richest place is the graveyard, because so many people die not never
Using
you being
life.
able to use their gifts, not never being able to use their talents, not being able to live life poured out. And I don't want no regrets. I don't want no regrets. So
Absolutely.
I want my legacy. I want my community. I want my family to remember me and say, listen, he lived life poured out.
Absolutely. And I absolutely see that in your life. And I absolutely know that God has a lot more for you to pour out. And I'd say that to say, one of my biggest fears is not utilizing everything that God has put into me. I don't ever want to leave this earth without using and doing all the things that God intended for
Yeah.
me to do. It kind of reminds me of that parable in the Bible that I talk about a lot. You guys are starting to learn that I have a few favorite ones. That not having enough oil, like having the oil and not using it. Like some people had multiplied it and some people just had what they had left over, what he had given them. And he wasn't happy with that. You know what I'm saying? And even there's another story in the Bible where Jesus cursed a tree because it didn't provide shade or fruit, and that's what he had created for it to do. So you can literally put yourself in a curse by not doing the things that you are supposed to do with your life, because a life unfulfilled is a curse. Have you ever thought about that? A life unfulfilled is a curse. That means, and what you have to understand about curses is that they don't just stop with you, they affect your generation. Because I believe that we stand on the backs of our ancestors, and every generation is supposed to, what they say, we're territory getters. And that doesn't just mean finances. Like, our family, all of us, we love the Lord, so we're winning people to Christ. And through that, we do that different ways. We like to always say, like, I want, Lord, show how much you love me. Let people see all the blessings that you have put on my life, not to flex, not to brag, but so when I tell them that you gonna do it, that my works align with what I done
Right.
said. And so just knowing that every battle that I don't win, that means that they have, and they already gonna have their own that they have to win. So I plan on doing, because when it comes to my kids, I say, now my money I might will give you, but theirs I'll fight you tooth and nail and to your grave, because I ain't going about what belongs to them. I ain't never giving you nothing that belongs to, my children and whatever seed comes after that. And I'm real serious about that. And I'm real serious about making sure, because the Bible also said a good man leaves his children an inheritance.
That's right.
And so the only way that you can leave your children an inheritance is by getting one. And so knowing what that looks like and stepping in that and believing God. One thing I love about the word is you got to believe it. It's in there. Right. You can read it, but you got to believe it. And once you believe it, what Bishop T.D. Jakes says, what you believe is all that matters. It don't matter what nobody else believes, because what you believe is going to show up in your actions and your interventions, which are your actions. And so it helps you step on that. So this is Our last question. Do you have any businesses, programs, or projects you'd like to promote at this time?
Um, I want to invite for you all that are looking for a church home. If you need a place to worship, all right. There's no doubt in my mind that you would come and that you would love serving and worshiping the Lord in the capacity that we do. So if you are looking for a church home, if you're looking for a place to visit, if you up in the air and you don't know which way to turn, come visit. It's True Worshipers. It is at 720 Burton Avenue. Again, that 720 Burton Avenue is right over by Churchill Down. It's in the South End. We start at 12 o'clock. All right. So listen, for those of you all that are looking for a place to serve, for a place to worship, to come if you just need to get back in the flow of things, just come on. I invite you out. Come on. You would enjoy yourself. All right.
Absolutely. I want you to tell them about your book and how they can get that.
Oh, okay. So my book, it is Silent Cries Become Loud Victories. All right. If you are connected with me on any social platform, all you have to do is DM me, inbox me, and I can get it to you. Or you can go on Amazon and you can order the book. It is on Amazon. All right. The easiest way is probably going to be to reach out to me on any social platform. It's Montez Cox on Facebook, on TikTok, and on Instagram. All right. So you can, again, you can just DM me. You can inbox me and I will get it to you. And if you want to go the Amazon route, then you can go that way too.
Absolutely. And then one more thing, your clothing line and how they can get that.
Same way, clothing line. I have my site is on Regalis. It's on Facebook and it's on Instagram. All right. TikTok is coming. Regalis Generation Clothing Company. All right. It's on Facebook and it's on Instagram. So if you can go to the pages, if you see something you want, something you like, reach out and I can get it to you. We do ship. No matter where you at, we can send it.
And you guys know that, like I say every single time, that after my guests come on the show, that whatever they promote, and he don't do Facebook a whole lot. So I have to go into his, I'll go into there and I'll start looking. So you'll be able to get in touch with, because I always go back and follow my guests. So you'll be able, if you come to my page, my little following list is not that long as of yet, but you'll be able to find it. And then even when he posts stuff, and I'll go in and like find stuff that he's posted and promote it so you'll see it. So I do that really well because that's what I like to do. So I help in that way. So that's my way of giving back, because these are good things that you want to support. A lot of times we support people and they don't have good character and they're not good. Support, you want more good, you got to promote it. You got to support it. So, like I said, come to my page. I'll like I do with all my other guests. I'll be promoting anything that he has going on. And I also wanted to say about his service. It's been years since but I've been a couple times and I've always had a really good time. And I mean a really good time where I felt like I would get breakthroughs. I'm just the online saint right now. So, but it wasn't because, it wasn't because I didn't have a good time. I've never been to a service that he's had that I didn't like thoroughly enjoy myself. So like he said, if you have the chance, and you do have the chance, you do have the time, go ahead and check him out. And I think he didn't really mention that, like, don't you go to Bowling Green sometime and stuff?
I go to
like
Bowling Green also. I go to
Okay.
Bowling Green also. I go there twice a month. So if you're in Bowling Green, I don't have a designated location right now. Right now we are using the conference room in the hotel, but the address, we always put, every time I come, I put out a flyer and the address is always on the flyer. So if you in Bowling Green, or if you in those surrounding counties or close nearby,
Come on through.
Listen, come on through. All right. I'll make sure that you know, okay? Because we consistently post where we're going to be in Bowling Green.
And that'll be something else. When I see those flyers, I'll go ahead and post it so you can see it. But I want to thank you for coming on today and taking time out your busy schedule, because we know you're busy.
It's been an honor and a pleasure.
And it's been a pleasure having you on. And to my viewers, thank you for your time again, and I'll see you later. You can wave.